every country in Europe, and it's in every county in Ireland, obviously, and it's in the main implemented by the local development companies that ILDN represent here. So there's lots. You're never far away from Leader Fund, and it's important that people are aware of it. You know, we work closely with the local enterprise office as well, and indeed a lot of people confuse us with the local enterprise, but ironically, Leader potentially has a lot more funding to allocate than the local enterprise offices.
Okay, right. So what type of costs would be eligible for those grant aids then?
So in the main, you're looking at capital costs, capital and as well as that marketing, and as I already mentioned, feasibility studies. Capital would typically entail, you know, pieces of equipment. It could be building related. It could be the fit out of a building, for instance, if it was a food business who wanted to, you know, kit out the premises to the required, you know, to the requirements that they have to adhere to. That's where Leader often comes in. Again, in terms of marketing, I find that a lot of businesses, particularly in the startup phase, they totally underestimate what they need to spend on marketing. And okay, we all know with social media now a lot of marketing is so-called free, but still you have to know how to use that and how to use it to your best advantage. So we do put a lot of emphasis on marketing as well. But feasibility studies are a hugely important part of what Leader does, both for startup businesses or maybe for businesses who are thinking of diversifying into doing something else. So the feasibility study is essentially examines whether something is viable or not, you know. So rather than going out and spending a lot of money without really knowing, like, because some people think that something will be a great idea until they start to do the research and so on. So with a small bit of tweaking, a feasibility study can very quickly become a business plan to accompany an application for capital grant aid for a business. So that's a lot of the projects that we fund and around the country, I'm sure, begin life with feasibility studies. It's quite bureaucratic. Anybody that has been through the process, you know, will tell you that. But the development officers around the country do a lot of hand-holding. So there's a lot of one-to-one with people. I often say that if it weren't for the development officers, I don't think that any Leader projects get grant aided around the country, because there is a fairly tedious task to go through. But you know, when you go through it, and when you go through it once, obviously it's easier the next time, and that's why there's quite a bit of repeat business, if you like, and people will come back to Leader a second and a third time. The first time is the most difficult time. But we do as best we can, I suppose. In terms of the application process, everything with Leader comes down to a set of costs. So that obviously, then the first thing you have to decide if you're setting up a business or if you're diversifying is you look at, well, what is it that I have to spend money on to do this, to make this happen? And then you see, well, of those costs, what are the costs that are eligible for Leader granting? Because they won't all be eligible. Like operating costs, running costs, day-to-day running costs, that type of thing, insurance, planning permission, none of that is eligible for grant aid. So you pick out the bits that are suited to Leader grant aid, and then you have to go and get tenders. And that can be a bit of a minefield for people. The whole, what we call procurement. And a lot of businesses, a lot of people that come to us, and when we talk to them about procurement, they say, like, they look like you have 10 heads on you, you know? And then when we start talking about something like e-tenders, it gets even worse. But there is a process to be followed, and it's all doable. And I think anybody that does go through the process and gets a Leader grant, they will say that it's been a challenging process, but it's been certainly worthwhile, because if you can get a grant, be it a 40 or 50 or 60 or 100,000, straight into your bank account, straight to the bottom line, you have to sell a lot of food products, or you have to bring a lot of people in through gates in the tourism business before you'll get that kind of money to the bottom line, you know.
Yeah, certainly. It takes a lot of risk out of it. So what advice would you give anybody who, I suppose with all your experience, what advice would you give, just I suppose to close, to finish up?
Yeah.
What would be the main things that you would say we need to
The
think
most
about?
important thing is that before you do anything, talk to your local development company. Talk to the people who are familiar with Leader, and they will tell you fairly quickly whether your idea is something that would be eligible for Leader grant aid or not. Now, having said that, nobody should have, set up something or whatever just because there's a grant available to do it. It would be the absolute wrong way to do it. But the most important thing is to come to us. Grant aid does not apply retrospectively, so you must, I suppose, you must know what you want, right? And you must plan for that. So I really say to people, like, look, have your research done, know what you want. Don't come to us just saying, I have a field out at the back of the house and I think it would be great to do something with it. You have to have the thing teased out fairly well. Development officers don't have time to actually, make up the decisions for yourself, if you know what I mean. We can help you, but the ideas must come from yourself. So I would say to people, there's a new Leader program kicking off later this year. There's a huge opportunity for businesses to get some of that funding. It's likely that the grant aid will be up to 75% of eligible costs, which is a huge opportunity for businesses. So, if you have an idea, if you've done your research, and you think this is something that would work in your county or in your town or whatever, talk to your Leader company. You can also talk to the local enterprise office. We work closely with them. Like, for instance, in Wexford, I sit on the evaluation committee of the local enterprise committee, or local enterprise office, should I say, and they sit on our evaluation committee. So we work very closely. Our aim really is to make sure that a business gets the best possible support they can get. And sometimes people will come to us and will say, you'd be better off going to the Leo, for instance. And sometimes people go to the Leo and they'll be told you'd be better off going to Leo. Because in the main, Leo is funding, a lot of the time is funding just jobs, for instance. They pay a percentage or grant per job, whereas Leader is a lot about equipment and so on. And okay, job creation is obviously important, but it's not the be all and end all.